Little girl says, "I know you, your photo is in Daddy's wallet," leaving the millionaire instantly shocked. Stephen Marshall woke up with the first ray of sunlight filtering through the silk curtains of his bedroom. Like every Sunday, he was preparing for his morning ritual, a run through the tree-lined streets of the exclusive neighborhood of Greenwoods. At 45, Stephen was the epitome of success. Owner of one of the country's leading tech companies, his fortune counted in millions. Yet as he laced up his state-of-the-art running shoes, Stephen felt an emptiness that all his money couldn't fill. His mansion, with its 20 rooms and Olympic-sized pool, felt cold and empty. Silence was his only constant companion. He stepped out into the street and started running, letting the rhythm of his steps drown out the thoughts that haunted him. The streets were almost deserted at that early hour on a Sunday, with only a few gardeners beginning their work in the immaculate gardens of neighboring mansions. Stephen ran without a fixed route, allowing his feet to take him through familiar streets and some not so familiar. His mind wandered between past memories and present worries. How had he reached this point? He had everything money could buy, but he felt lonelier than ever. He was so absorbed in his thoughts that he almost didn't hear the child's voice calling out, "I know you. Your picture is in my dad's wallet." Stephen stopped abruptly, his heart pounding from both the exercise and the surprise. He looked around, searching for the source of the voice. That's when he saw her, a little girl, about 7 years old, with brown hair tied in 2 braids and large, expressive eyes, looking at him with curiosity. Her clothes were simple, indicating her family didn't enjoy great luxuries. Confused and a bit intrigued, Stephen crouched down to her level. "What's your name, dear?" he asked with a kind smile. "My name is Lily," she replied, smiling back. "My dad has a picture of you in his wallet. He showed it to me." A chill ran down Stephen's spine. Who could this girl's father be, and why would he have a photo of him? His mind started racing, trying to find a logical explanation. "And what does your dad look like, Lily? Where is he now?" he asked, trying to conceal his growing curiosity. "He's at home. We can go there now if you want," Lily said naturally, taking Stephen's hand with confidence. For a moment, Stephen hesitated. It was Sunday morning, and Lily's father would likely be resting. Besides, was it wise to follow an unknown child? But curiosity outweighed caution. He nodded and let Lily lead the way. As they walked, Stephen noticed how the scenery gradually changed. The imposing mansions gave way to more modest houses and then to apartment buildings. Lily walked with determination, occasionally greeting a neighbor. Finally, they arrived at a set of simple but well-kept homes. Lily led him to a worn door and knocked firmly. Stephen held his breath, unsure what to expect. The door opened slowly, revealing a thin man with a tired look and an unshaven beard. Stephen felt as if the air had been expelled from his lungs. He immediately recognized those eyes, that jawline, those slumped shoulders. It was impossible, and yet there he was. "Is it really you?" Stephen exclaimed, feeling a mix of surprise, emotion, and a tinge of guilt. The man's eyes filled with tears, and he took a hesitant step forward. "Yes, it's me," he said, his voice breaking. "It's me, Andrew." Lily, observing the tension between the two, asked, innocently, "Dad, you know him, right? He's the man in the photo." "Yes, Lily," Andrew replied, trying to control his emotion. "He's my brother." Lily looked from one to the other, not fully understanding the complexity of the moment. "Lily, why don't you go play while I talk with him?" Andrew suggested, trying to keep his voice calm. The girl nodded and ran inside the house. The two brothers stood there, looking at each other, as a heavy silence settled between them. It had been almost 10 years since they last saw each other, and time seemed to have carved an abyss between them. "Come in, please," Andrew finally said, opening the door wider. Stephen entered the modest home, feeling a wave of memories and emotions threatening to overwhelm him. The unexpected reunion with his brother would mark the beginning of a journey of reconciliation, challenges, and redemption that neither could foresee. The living room was small but cozy, with worn but clean furniture. On the walls, Stephen noticed some family photos, including one where Andrew held a newborn Lily. The image gave him a pang of guilt. He had missed so many important moments in his brother's life. "Sit down, please," said Andrew, pointing to a sofa. "Would you like something to drink?" "I have coffee." "Coffee would be great, thanks," Stephen replied, sitting down with some discomfort. As Andrew headed to the kitchen, Stephen couldn't help but notice how much his brother had changed. He was no longer the carefree, energetic young man he remembered. Now he seemed tired, as if the weight of the world rested on his shoulders. Andrew returned with 2 steaming cups of coffee. He sat down across from Stephen, and for a moment, neither knew what to say. "So you have a daughter," Stephen began, breaking the awkward silence. Andrew nodded, a small smile lighting up his tired face. "Yes, Lily. She's 7 years old. She's the best thing that ever happened to me." "She looks like you," Stephen commented. "She has your eyes." "And her mother's character," added Andrew, his smile fading a little. "Her mother." Stephen left the question hanging, fearing the answer. "She left us 3 years ago," Andrew said quietly. "A car accident." Stephen felt as if he'd been punched in the stomach. His brother had gone through so much, and he didn't even know. "I'm so sorry, Andrew. I had no idea." "How could you have known?" Andrew replied, a hint of bitterness in his voice. "We haven't talked in years." Silence fell between them again, heavy with years of distance and unspoken reproaches. How have you been?" Stephen asked, aware of how inadequate the question sounded. Andrew let out a humorless laugh. "I've had better days, but we managed, Lily and I." Stephen nodded, not knowing what else to say. He looked around the small living room, noting the signs of a modest but dignified life. It was a stark contrast to his own mansion, full of luxuries but devoid of warmth. "And you?" asked Andrew. "You've become quite the magnate from what I've heard." Stephen shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "Yes, well, the company has been successful." "I'm happy for you," said Andrew, and to Stephen's surprise he sounded sincere. "Andrew, Stephen began, not knowing exactly what he wanted to say. Apologize? Offer help? Try to explain the years of silence? But before he could continue, Lily came running back into the room holding a drawing. "Dad, look what I made," she exclaimed, showing a colorful drawing of 3 figures, a man, a girl, and a taller man. "It's beautiful, honey," said Andrew, hugging his daughter. "Who are they?" "It's us," explained Lily. "You, me, and Uncle Stephen." The 2 brothers exchanged a look, surprised at how easily Lily had accepted the situation. "Lily, dear," Andrew began gently, "Uncle Stephen probably has to leave now. He has a very busy life." Stephen felt as if a bucket of cold water had been dumped on him. It was true. He had a busy life. Meetings, calls, important decisions to make. But suddenly none of that seemed to matter as much as the present moment. "Actually," Stephen said, surprising himself, "I was wondering if you'd like to go for breakfast. I know a place nearby that makes delicious pancakes." Lily jumped with excitement. "Yes, please, Dad, can we go?" Andrew looked at his brother, a mix of surprise and caution in his eyes. "I don't know, Stephen. We don't want to bother." It's no bother," insisted Stephen. "Please, I'd like to get to know my niece better and catch up." There was a moment of tension as Andrew considered the offer. Finally, he nodded slowly. "All right, give us a few minutes to change." While Andrew and Lily got ready, Stephen stayed in the living room looking at the photos on the wall. He saw his brother in different stages of his life. Graduation, wedding, Lily's birth, important moments he had missed. He felt a determination growing inside him. He couldn't change the past, but perhaps, just perhaps, he could be part of the future. When Andrew and Lily returned, ready to go, Stephen greeted them with a genuine smile. As they left the house, with Lily chattering happily between them, Stephen felt something he hadn't experienced in a long time. Hope breakfast would be just the beginning. A first step on a path of reconciliation and rediscovery. A path that would lead the Marshall brothers to face their past, heal old wounds, and perhaps build a new future. Together. The restaurant Stephen had chosen was a small family place, with wooden tables and the aroma of freshly brewed coffee floating in the air. Lily looked around with wide eyes, while Andrew seemed a bit uncomfortable, aware that this wasn't the type of place he usually visited. sitting at a table by the window with plates of steaming pancakes in front of them. The Marshall brothers found themselves in an awkward silence, broken only by Lily's occasional enthusiastic comments about the food. "So, Lily," Stephen began, trying to break the ice, "what do you like to do?" "I love drawing," the girl replied enthusiastically, "and playing soccer Dad taught me." Stephen looked at his brother in surprise. "You still play soccer?" Andrew shrugged. "Once in a while it's something Lily and I do together on weekends. I remember when we used to play together in the backyard," said Stephen, a nostalgic smile on his face. "You were better than me." "I still am," joked Andrew, and for a moment the tension between them seemed to ease. Lily looked at them curiously. "Dad, why didn't you ever tell me about Uncle Stephen before?" The innocent question fell like a bomb at the table. Andrew visibly tensed, while Stephen lowered his gaze to his plate. "It's complicated, honey," Andrew replied after a moment. "Sometimes adults make mistakes and drift apart." "But now we're here," Stephen interjected, looking at his brother with a mix of guilt and hope. "And I'd like, if your dad agrees, for us to get to know each other better." Andrew looked at his brother for a long moment, before slowly nodding. "I suppose we could try." The rest of the breakfast passed in a more relaxed atmosphere, with Lily telling stories about school and her friends. Stephen listened attentively, amazed by his niece's energy and joy. When they finished eating, Stephen insisted on paying the bill despite Andrew's protests. As they left the restaurant, they found themselves unsure of how to proceed. "Would you like to take a walk in the park?" suggested Stephen. "There's one, nearby." Lily nodded enthusiastically, and Andrew, seeing his daughter's excitement, agreed. As they walked along the park's paths, with Lily running, ahead to explore, Stephen and Andrew found themselves walking side by side in a silence filled with unasked questions. "Andrew," began Stephen, gathering the courage to address the elephant in the room, "I know it's been years, and that things between us didn't end well, but I want you to know that I'm sorry I wasn't there for you, especially after what happened to your wife." Andrew kept his eyes fixed on the path for a moment before responding. "It wasn't just your fault, Stephen. I made mistakes too. My gambling addiction, I ruined a lot of things. Even so, I should have been there. You're my brother." They stopped at a bench, watching Lily play in a nearby area with other children. "How did you overcome it?" Stephen asked. "The addiction, I mean." Andrew sighed deeply. "It wasn't easy. I hit rock bottom several times, but when Maria got pregnant, I knew I had to change. For her, for the baby, I joined a support group, got help, and when Lily was born, I knew I couldn't go back." Stephen nodded, feeling a mix of admiration and remorse. "You did it alone. I should have been there to support you." "I wasn't completely alone," admitted Andrew. "Maria's parents helped me a lot, especially after the accident. Without them, I don't know what would have become of Lily and me." "I'm glad you had that support," said Stephen sincerely. "Andrew, I know it's a lot to ask, but do you think we could try to rebuild our relationship? I'd like to be part of your life, of Lily's life, if you'll let me." Andrew remained silent for a moment, his gaze fixed on his daughter, laughing while swinging. "It won't be easy, Stephen. A lot has happened, and we've both changed." "I know," nodded Stephen, "but I'm willing to try to do whatever it takes." "Why now?" asked Andrew, turning to look at his brother. "What has changed?" Stephen reflected for a moment before responding. "Honestly, I'm not entirely sure. Maybe it was seeing Lily, realizing everything I've missed. Or maybe it's that I've finally realized that all the success and money mean nothing. If you're alone..." Andrew nodded slowly, as if understanding perfectly what his brother meant. "I can't promise anything," he said finally, "but we can try for Lily, if not for ourselves." Stephen felt a lump in his throat. "Thank you, Andrew. I won't let you down this time." At that moment, Lily came running towards them, her cheeks flushed from playing and excitement. "Dad, Uncle Stephen, did you see how high I was swinging?" "We saw, honey," smiled Andrew, hugging his daughter. "You were flying." "Uncle Stephen," said Lily, turning to him with bright eyes, "will you come visit us again?" Stephen looked at Andrew, seeking his approval. When his brother nodded slightly, he replied, "I'd love to, Lily. If your dad agrees, I'd like to see you both again soon." "Yes," exclaimed Lily, jumping with excitement. "Can we go to your house next time, Uncle? Do you have a pool? I've always wanted to swim in a pool." Stephen laughed softly. "Yes, I have a pool and I'd love for you to use it." As they walked back to Andrew's house, Stephen felt that something had changed inside him. The emptiness he had felt for so long was beginning to fill with the warmth of the family he had forgotten. When they said goodbye, Stephen hugged Lily, and then, after a moment of hesitation, also hugged Andrew. The embrace was brief and a bit awkward, but it was full of unspoken promises. "I'll call you this week," said Stephen. "Maybe we can arrange that visit to the pool." Andrew nodded. "We'd like that." As Stephen walked away, occasionally turning to wave at Lily, who waved back enthusiastically, he felt that he was leaving behind the lonely and empty man he had been that morning. The path to reconciliation and redemption would be long and probably difficult, but for the first time in years, Stephen Marshall felt hope. Back at his mansion, Stephen found himself looking at the empty rooms with new eyes. He no longer saw symbols of his success, but spaces that could be filled with laughter and family memories. He went to his study and took out an old photo album that he had kept in the back of a drawer. The images of his childhood with Andrew transported him to a simpler time when they were inseparable. He remembered summers playing in their parents' garden, silly fights that always ended in laughter, and promises to always be there for each other. When had they lost that? When had money and success become more important than family? Stephen closed the album with determination. He couldn't change the past, but he could do everything possible to build a better future. A future that included his brother and his niece. He took his phone and, after a moment of hesitation, dialed a number he hadn't used in years. "Mom? It's me, Stephen." "Yes, I'm fine. Listen, I have something to tell you." The following days passed in a whirlwind of emotions and preparations for Stephen. After the call to his mother, which had resulted in a long and emotional conversation about the past and the future, he dedicated himself to preparing his house for Andrew and Lily's visit. On Friday afternoon, Stephen waited nervously at the entrance of his mansion. He had hired a cleaning crew to ensure everything was spotless and had filled the fridge with snacks and drinks he thought Lily would like. When the taxi pulled up in front of the house, Stephen felt his heart race. Lily was the first to get out, her eyes widening at the sight of the enormous house. "Wow," she exclaimed, "it's like a castle." Andrew got out next, looking a bit uncomfortable in his jeans and casual shirt. Stephen noticed that his brother had made an effort to shave and tidy up for the occasion. "Welcome," said Stephen, trying to sound casual, despite his nerves. "I'm glad you could come." "Thanks for inviting us," replied Andrew, his voice a mix of politeness and a touch of discomfort. Lily, however, didn't notice the tension between the adults. "Uncle Stephen, where's the pool? Can we go swimming now?" Stephen laughed, grateful for his niece's enthusiasm. "Of course, Lily. But first, how about I give you a tour of the house?" As they toured the rooms, Stephen noticed how Andrew looked around with a mix of amazement and something that seemed like sadness. Lily, on the other hand, was fascinated by everything, especially the home theater and the huge kitchen. "I've never seen a house this big," commented Andrew quietly when they reached Stephen's study. "Sometimes it's too big," admitted Stephen, "especially when you're alone." There was a moment of awkward silence before Lily saved them once again with her enthusiasm. "The pool, Uncle Stephen. Can we go now?" "Of course," smiled Stephen. "Why don't you go change? I'll show you where the changing rooms are." While Lily and Andrew were changing, Stephen took the opportunity to make a quick call to his assistant, cancelling a meeting he had scheduled for that afternoon. For the first time in years, work could wait. When he came out to the pool area, he found a scene that filled his heart with unexpected warmth. Lily was in the water, laughing and splashing, while Andrew watched from the edge, a genuine smile on his face. "Come on, Uncle Stephen," called Lily. "The water's perfect." Without a second thought, Stephen took off his shirt and jumped into the pool, joining his niece in her games. Soon, even Andrew joined in, and for a moment, it was as if the years of separation had never existed. They played and swam until the sun began to set, painting the sky in golden and pink hues. They got out of the water, exhausted but happy, and Stephen offered them soft, fluffy towels. "Are you hungry?" he asked. "I thought we could have a barbecue in the yard." "Yes, please," exclaimed Lily. "Can I help?" "Of course," smiled Stephen. "In fact, I'll need all the help I can get. I'm not the best cook in the world." As they prepared the food together, Stephen realized how natural everything felt. Lily chatted happily about school and her friends, Andrew added occasional comments, and Stephen found himself enjoying more than he had in years. Sitting around the patio table, with the night sky above them and the smell of freshly cooked food in the air, Stephen felt like he was finally home. "This is nice," commented Andrew quietly, while Lily devoured her burger. "Thank you, Stephen." "There's nothing to thank," replied Stephen. I've missed this family." Andrew nodded, a shadow of sadness crossing his face. "Me too." There was a moment of silence, broken only by the sounds of the night and Lily's occasional enthusiastic comments about the food. "Andrew," began Stephen, gathering courage, "I know it's soon and that we have a lot to rebuild, but I'd like to be part of your lives, really not just occasional visits, but being there for you, for Lily." Andrew looked at his brother for a long moment, as if trying to read the sincerity in his eyes. "Are you sure? Your life is very different from ours, Stephen. I don't want you to feel obligated." "I don't feel obligated," interrupted Stephen. "I feel complete. For the first time in a long time." Lily, who had been listening to the conversation with curiosity, intervened. "Does that mean we'll come more often, Dad? Will I be able to use the pool again?" Andrew looked at his daughter and then at his brother, a small smile forming on his lips. "I suppose so, honey. If your uncle agrees." "More than agree," nodded Stephen, feeling a wave of emotion. "In fact, I was thinking maybe you could stay this weekend. I have plenty of rooms and we could make more plans together." Lily jumped with excitement at the idea, and Andrew, after a moment of doubt, nodded, "All right, we'll stay." That night, as Stephen prepared to sleep, he heard laughter coming from the room where Andrew and Lily were staying. The sound filled the empty halls of the mansion, bringing life to a space that had been too quiet for too long. He realized that, for the first time in years, he didn't feel alone. The mansion was no longer just a symbol of his success, but a home that was beginning to fill with the love and warmth of family. As he lay down, Stephen made a silent promise. He would do everything possible to keep this, to be the brother and uncle that Andrew and Lily deserved. The path to full reconciliation would be long, but he was willing to walk it step by step. With the distant sound of his family's laughter lulling him to sleep, Stephen smiled, dreaming of a future full of possibilities. The weekend flew by in a whirlwind of activities and laughter. Stephen, Andrew, and Lily visited the local zoo, watched movies in the home theater, and even improvised a small soccer game in the mansion's expansive yard. To Stephen's surprise, he found that he enjoyed these simple moments more than any of the luxurious parties or business events he was accustomed to. On Sunday afternoon, as he helped Andrew and Lily pack their things, Stephen felt a pang of sadness at the thought of how empty the house would feel once they left. "It has been a wonderful weekend," he said, trying to keep a light tone. "I hope we can do it again soon." Andrew nodded, a small smile on his lips. "It has been surprisingly pleasant." "Thank you, Stephen." Lily, who was packing her drawings into a backpack, looked up with bright eyes. "Can we come back next weekend, Uncle Stephen?" Stephen laughed softly. "I'd love that, Lily, but I think that depends on your dad." Both looked at Andrew, who seemed to consider the idea for a moment. "Well, we can't come every weekend," he said finally, "but maybe once a month." Stephen's face lit up. "That would be perfect. And maybe could I visit you too? I'd like to see where you live, be part of your daily life." Andrew seemed surprised by the suggestion, but nodded slowly. "Sure, that would be nice." As they said their goodbyes at the door, Stephen bent down to hug Lily. "Thank you for coming. Little one, you've filled this house with joy." Lily hugged him back tightly. "Thank you, Uncle Stephen. I had so much fun." Then Stephen turned to his brother. There was a moment of hesitation before they embraced, warmer and less awkward than the previous week. "Take care, Andrew," said Stephen, "and please, call me if you need anything. Anything at all." Andrew nodded, emotion clear in his eyes. "I will thank you, brother." As he watched the taxi drive away, Stephen felt a mix of sadness and hope. The house felt more empty, yes, but also full of new possibilities. In the following weeks, Stephen found himself reorganizing his life in a way he had never considered before. He began delegating more responsibilities at work, ensuring he had weekends free. He even started leaving the office at reasonable hours during the week, something that surprised his employees. One Wednesday afternoon, Stephen found himself driving to Andrew's neighborhood. He had called ahead to make sure it was okay to visit, and now as he parked in front of the modest house, he felt a mix of nerves and excitement. Lily was the first to greet him, running towards him with open arms. "Uncle Stephen, you came!" Stephen lifted her up, laughing. "Of course I came, I promised, didn't I?" Andrew appeared in the doorway, a tired but genuine smile on his face. "Hello, Stephen, welcome." They entered the house, and Stephen found himself observing everything with new eyes. The living room, though small, was filled with photos and Lily's drawings. The kitchen, though modest, smelled of something delicious cooking. "I hope you like stew," said Andrew, a bit embarrassed. "It's nothing fancy, but—" "It smells wonderful," interrupted Stephen sincerely. "Much better than any fancy restaurant." During dinner, Stephen listened attentively as Lily talked about her day at school and Andrew commented on his work. He realized that despite their financial limitations, there was a warmth and love in this house that his mansion had never had. After dinner, while Lily did her homework, Stephen and Andrew sat in the small backyard with cups of coffee. "Andrew," began Stephen, gathering courage, "I've been thinking I'd like to help financially. I mean—" Andrew visibly tensed. "Stephen, it's not necessary. We're managing fine." "I know," said Stephen quickly. "I don't want to offend you, it's just that I have more money than I'll ever spend in my life, and I'd like to use it for something meaningful for Lily's education, maybe, or so you can. Move to a bigger place if you want." Andrew was silent for a moment, looking at his coffee cup. "I appreciate the offer, Stephen, really, but I don't want our relationship to be based on money. I already made that mistake once with gambling." Stephen nodded, understanding. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to imply, it's just that I want to help be part of your lives." "And you are," said Andrew, looking at his brother. "We don't need your money, Stephen, just your presence, your time. That's more valuable than any amount of money." Stephen felt a lump in his throat. "Thank you, Andrew, that means a lot to me." They sat in silence for a moment, the distant sound of Lily humming as she did her homework filling the air. "You know," said Andrew finally, "there is something you could help with if you really want to." "Whatever it is," replied Stephen immediately. "The community center in the neighborhood is struggling. They need volunteers and maybe some donations for their after-school programs. I thought maybe with your contacts." Stephen smiled, feeling a wave of excitement. "I'd love to help with that. In fact, why don't we go together tomorrow? We could see what they need exactly." Andrew nodded, a smile forming on his lips. "That sounds like a great idea." As Stephen prepared to leave that night, he felt that something had changed, not just in his relationship with Andrew and Lily, but in himself. For the first time in years, he felt like he had a purpose beyond making money and closing deals. "I'll be back tomorrow," he promised, hugging Lily and then Andrew. "We have a community center to help." As he drove back to his mansion, Stephen realized that he no longer saw it as his home. His home was where his family was, in that little house full of love and laughter, and he was determined to be part of it no matter what it took. The future, once lonely and empty, now seemed full of possibilities. Stephen smiled to himself, eager to see what tomorrow would bring. The next morning dawned clear and bright, as if the sky itself wanted to celebrate new beginnings. Stephen woke up early, more excited than he had been in years for a day of work. But this was no ordinary workday. Today he was going to do something that truly mattered. He arrived at Andrew's house just as he was sending Lily off to school. The girl ran to him, hugging his legs, before getting on the school bus. "Good morning," greeted Andrew, a cup of coffee in hand. Ready to see the community center? Stephen nodded enthusiastically. More than ready, in fact, I did some research last night. It seems the center has been struggling for years. Andrew sighed as they walked to Stephen's car. Yeah, it's a shame. It used to be the heart of the neighborhood. Now they can barely keep the lights on. The community center turned out to be an old but characterful building located in the heart of the neighborhood. Peeling paint and dirty windows spoke of years of neglect, but Stephen could see the potential beneath it all. They were greeted by Elena, the center's director, a middle-aged woman with a warm smile and tired eyes. Andrew, it's so good to see you, she greeted before turning to Stephen with curiosity. And who is this? Elena, this is my brother, Stephen, Andrew introduced. He's interested in helping the center. Elena's eyes lit up. Really? That's wonderful. God knows we need all the help we can get. As Elena gave them a tour of the center, Stephen took mental notes. The roof needed repairs, the electrical system was outdated, and most of the equipment was worn out or broken. What programs do you currently offer? Asked Stephen. Elena sighed. We used to have many art classes, after-school tutoring, a book club for seniors, but with budget cuts, we can barely keep the after-school program running. Stephen nodded, his mind already working on possible solutions. What if we could not only restore those programs but add more? Maybe computer classes, a small community, gym. Elena and Andrew looked at him with a mix of hope and skepticism. That would be a dream, said Elena. But how? Stephen smiled. I have some contacts who might be interested in a corporate social responsibility project, and I'm willing to make a substantial personal donation. But more than that, I want to get involved personally. Help organize, recruit volunteers. Andrew looked at his brother with a new light of respect and pride. Count me in too. I can help with the repairs, and I'm sure many in the neighborhood would be willing to lend a hand. Eleanor seemed on the verge of tears. I don't know what to say. This could change everything. Then, said Stephen, extending his hand, let's get started. The following days and weeks were a whirlwind of activity. Stephen used his contacts to secure donations from local businesses, while Andrew organized volunteer teams from the neighborhood to help with the repairs. Stephen surprised himself by enjoying the manual labor, painting walls and fixing furniture alongside the neighborhood residents. In the afternoons, he met with Elena and a team of volunteers to plan the new programs and how to implement them. Lily became a frequent visitor to the center, excited to help in any way she could. Stephen watched with pride as his niece organized books in the new library or helped younger children with their homework. One Saturday, as Stephen and Andrew took a break from painting one of the classrooms, Andrew looked at his brother with a smile. You know, I never thought I'd see you like this, he said. Like what? Asked Stephen, wiping a paint smudge from his cheek. Happy, replied Andrew simply, really happy. Stephen stopped, reflecting on his brother's words. You're right, he said, finally. I don't think I've been truly happy in years. This feels right. Andrew nodded, placing a hand on his brother's shoulder. I'm proud of you, Stephen. You've changed so much. Stephen felt a lump in his throat. Thanks, Andrew. I couldn't have done it without you and Lily. You've shown me what really matters in life. The brothers shared a moment of silence, the sound of laughter and hard work filling the air around them. Finally, after months of hard work and dedication, the grand reopening of the community center arrived. The building, once neglected, now gleamed with fresh paint and clean windows. Colorful banners announced the new programs, and an excited crowd gathered for the inauguration ceremony. Stephen, Andrew, and Lily stood next to Elena, all wearing community center t-shirts. As Elena gave an emotional thank you speech, Stephen looked around, amazed at what they had accomplished together. He saw families gathered, seniors chatting animatedly, children running with enthusiasm. He saw hope in people's eyes, a new energy in the neighborhood. When it was his turn to speak, Stephen approached the microphone with humility. I'm not here as a benefactor or a savior, he began. I'm here as part of this community. This center is a testament to what we can achieve when we work together, when we care for each other. It has taught me more than I could ever teach anyone. It has shown me the true meaning of wealth, and it has nothing to do with money in the bank. He looked at Andrew and Lily, who smiled at him with pride. "My family brought me here, and you have become my extended family. Thank you for letting me be part of something so special." As the crowd applauded, Stephen felt his heart fill with a joy he had never experienced before. He knew this was just the beginning of a new chapter in his life, one full of purpose and love. In the months following the community center's reopening, Stephen continued to expand his work with the foundation. They opened more community centers, implemented educational and job training programs, and worked tirelessly to improve the lives of people in underserved communities. Andrew became the foundation's operations director, overseeing the practical implementation of projects. His experience and connection with the community were invaluable to the foundation's ongoing success. Lily, having grown up seeing the positive impact her family had on the community, decided to follow in her uncle and father's footsteps. She studied social work in college and joined the foundation after graduating, bringing fresh ideas and energy to their mission. One day, while supervising the construction of a new center in a neighborhood across town, Andrew looked at his brother with a mix of pride and amazement. "You know, I never thought I'd say this, but I think you've found your true calling," he said. Stephen smiled. Watching the enthusiastic volunteers work, "I wouldn't have believed it a year ago. It's incredible how life can take unexpected turns." "Speaking of unexpected turns," said Andrew, with a mischievous smile, "I've noticed you spend a lot of time with Elena lately." Stephen felt his cheeks blush slightly. It was true that he and the community center's director had developed a close friendship over the past months. Their shared passion for community work and their dedication to making a difference had brought them closer. "Well, we work together on many projects," replied Stephen, trying to sound casual. Andrew laughed. "Come on, brother, I know you. There's something more, isn't there?" Stephen sighed, a shy smile forming on his lips. "Maybe it's different from any relationship I've had before. Eleanor is amazing. Her compassion, her strength, she inspires me every day." "I'm happy for you," said Andrew, placing a hand on his brother's shoulder. "You deserve to be happy." As the sun set over the city, Stephen reflected on how much his life had changed in such a short time. From being a lonely and self-centered executive, he had become a man with a purpose, surrounded by family and friends, and possibly on the brink of a new, significant relationship. "You know what?" said Stephen, looking at his brother. "I think I am happy, happier than I've been in a long time." The brothers shared a smile, their bond stronger than ever. Together, they were not only building community centers, but also a legacy of hope and positive change. As they walked back home, Stephen realized that his life, once defined by financial success and status, was now filled with something much more valuable: purpose, love, and the satisfaction of making a real difference in people's lives. The future, once lonely and empty, now seemed full of exciting possibilities, and Stephen was eager to see what else the journey would bring. 20 years had passed since that fateful Sunday when a little girl had changed the course of Stephen Marshall's life. Now at 65, Stephen found himself sitting on the porch of his home, a modest but cozy house in the same neighborhood where it all began. Eleanor, his life partner for the past 2 decades, was by his side, their hands intertwined as they watched. The sunset time had left its marks on both of them, but their eyes still shone with the same passion and love that had brought them together. "What are you thinking about, my love?" asked Elena, noticing Stephen's thoughtful look. He smiled, squeezing her hand gently. "How much everything has changed. How fortunate I am." At that moment, the sound of children's laughter filled the air. Stephen and Elena looked towards the garden, where their 7-year-old granddaughter, Lucy, was playing with a group of neighborhood kids. Lucy was the daughter of Lily, who now ran the foundation that Stephen and Elena had established so many years ago. Lily had married Michael, a teacher she had met while working at one of the community centers, and together they were raising Lucy with the same values of compassion and service that they had learned from their parents and uncles. Andrew, now a man with graying hair but the same warm smile, came out of the house with a tray of lemonade. "Kids," he called, "come get refreshed." The children ran to him, thanking him between giggles as they took their glasses. Lucy approached the porch. Her cheeks flushed from playing Grandpa, she said, looking at Stephen with her big, curious eyes. "Can you tell me the story again of how you met Aunt Lily?" Stephen laughed, lifting his granddaughter and sitting her on his lap. "Again? But you've heard it 1,000 times." "But I love it," insisted Lucy. "Please, Grandpa." Stephen looked at Elena and Andrew, who nodded with knowing smiles. He began to tell the story that had changed his life, the story of a little girl who had recognized him on the street and led him back to his family. As he spoke, Stephen couldn't help but marvel at how life had come full circle. Here he was telling his granddaughter a story that began with another girl her age, a girl who had been the catalyst for all this happiness. "And so, little Lucy," Stephen concluded, "I learned that true wealth isn't in money or the things we own, but in the people we love and the difference we can make in others' lives." Lucy hugged him tightly. "I love you, Grandpa. When I grow up, I want to be like you and Grandma Elena, helping people." Stephen felt his heart swell with pride and emotion. "And you will be, my little one. You have a huge heart, just like your mother." At that moment, Lily and Michael arrived, greeting. Everyone with warm hugs. Lily, now a middle-aged woman with the same bright smile she had as a child, sat next to her uncle. "Telling stories again, Uncle Stephen?" she asked with a knowing smile. "Your daughter is insatiable," laughed Stephen. "She reminds me of someone I met many years ago." Lily took her uncle's hand, her eyes shining with gratitude. "I'll never stop thanking you for everything you've done for us, for this community." Stephen shook his head. "No, Lily, I'm the one who should thank you. You and your father showed me the way to a truly rich life." As the family chatted and laughed, sharing stories and memories, Stephen couldn't help but reflect on the incredible journey his life had been. From being a lonely, self-centered man, he had become the patriarch of a loving family and the pillar of a thriving community. The community centers, which had started as a personal redemption project, had expanded throughout the city, changing countless lives. The foundation, now led by Lily with Michael's help, continued to grow and adapt to the changing needs of the community. They had added financial education programs, mobile health clinics, and green energy initiatives, always seeking new ways to improve people's lives. Andrew, though officially retired, remained a constant presence at the centers, his wisdom and experience always valued. He and Stephen had forged an unbreakable bond over the years, their brotherhood stronger than ever. Eleanor, his rock and companion, had been instrumental every step of the way. Her love and support had been Stephen's anchor in difficult moments and his joy in good times. As the sun set, painting the sky in golden and pink hues, Stephen looked around with a deep sense of peace and gratitude. His life, once empty and meaningless, was now full of love, purpose, and the satisfaction of having made a real difference in the world. "Are you okay, love?" asked Eleanor, noticing Stephen's distant look. He smiled, his eyes bright with happy tears. "More than okay, my love. I'm at peace. Complete." At that moment, as if the universe wanted to underline his words, a gentle breeze blew through the garden, carrying the scent of flowers and the sound of children's laughter. Stephen closed his eyes, absorbing the moment. He thought about the man he had been, the long road he had traveled, and all the lives they had touched in the process. He thought about little Lily, whose innocent question had triggered all this, and about the Lucy of today carrying forward that legacy of love and service. And he knew with absolute certainty that this was the true meaning of wealth. It wasn't the millions in his bank account, nor the titles or power he once held. True wealth was here in this moment, in the love of his family, the gratitude of his community, and the satisfaction of a life well lived. Stephen Marshall, once a lonely millionaire, had found a treasure far more valuable than any material fortune. He had found love, purpose, and the joy of giving. And in the process, he had discovered the true wealth of the soul. As night gently fell over the neighborhood, the Marshall family remained together on the porch, sharing stories, laughter, and love. And Stephen, surrounded by the warmth of his family and the legacy of his work, knew that he had lived a truly rich life. This was his happy ending, but also a new beginning, because the love and compassion they had sown would continue to bloom, touching lives and changing the world long after they were gone. And so, the story of Stephen Marshall, the millionaire who discovered true wealth, came to an end. But his legacy, the impact of his transformation, and the love he had shared would continue to live on in the hearts of all those whose lives he had touched.